Beautiful. Share my screen. Boom. All right. If anybody else wants to jump on, we can then add them into the room. But essentially, what I want to talk about today is quote unquote the dark sides of pushing to extremes. And that being said, a lot of us always want to do more, if that be with cardio, pushing food up or down, if that be with drugs, etc. But again, we really need to make sure that we find that happy balance with everything that we do, as opposed to just driving things to an absolute extreme. So that's what this conversation today is going to be about. The all or nothing kind of thinking mindset with fitness and life, why extremes can be pretty sabotaging and what balance really looks like and how balance in itself is going to be the most productive thing for us when looking at things in a long-term setting, right? So, what are the extremes? Of course, over restricting food, cutting out entire food groups, skipping meals, avoiding social events, fearing flexibility. I think the vast majority of you guys, I should say every single one of you, before we even went ahead and made your meal plan, you guys told me what list of proteins, carbs, and fats you would like. I obviously sprinkled in a couple other things just for some variety, of course. That way, everybody is who's not muted. There we go. That way, you guys all have some actual sources of variety within your diet, and you're not just plain Jane chicken and rice. And of course, overtraining in itself as well. We want to make sure that, sorry, I'm just trying to mute. Whoever is not muted, please just mute yourself. Um, Overtraining in itself, we want to make sure that we're staying within your recovery capabilities and that we are not pushing your body to the absolute brink. And this definitely comes into a big focal point when in prep. And I think a lot of us have had that conversation over this past season. But perfecting obsession, one small mistake feels like it's a total failure when it really is not. It's truly a lesson at the end of the day in regards to how you can possibly improve on whatever the situation might have been. And then, of course, you got your on and off phases. You typically see this within the off season or lifestyle clients. Most times, if I'm being frank, being all in one week or for a few days, and then something kind of went off track, and then you kind of fuck the dog, and things are just snowballed into this big situation where we have to kind of pull the reins back and find that grounding and get you back moving into a positive setting. And then, of course, that mental rigidity thinking that there's only one way to do something. That couldn't be further from the truth. There's a thousand ways to get from point A to point B, and I've preached this multiple times with you guys over the years. I'm sure that if one option is not working, we can always divert and create a second option, third option, fourth option. Something will work for you. And of course, for the enhanced athletes, PED abuse, we want to make sure that the risk versus reward ratio is within your favor and that we don't take things way out of balance because, again, it is your health at the end of the day, and we want you to have longevity within your life. So the cost of these extremes definitely play a role, especially from person to person. It's very dependent on the individual and the situation, but short-term results, long-term burnout, driving things right to the ground is never going to be productive in the long term. It might work for a couple of weeks. And of course, sometimes we have to push your boundaries a bit to get the body moving. If it's being stubborn, but we always revert back because if we continue to push and push and push, it will fight us. And that is when we see things kind of stall, right? And then kind of ties into the next one, injuries and stalled progress. Overtraining or poor recovery limits growth. Doing more in the gym is definitely not better. Just had another client sign on this past week, and he's been so used to high volume, and he's pushing 300 pounds. pure muscle and meat at the end of the day. But we've had to pull his training back because as you mature in your training career, your training life, less is more because we really want to make sure that your tissue health is healthy as opposed to just trashing you every single day. You can get a lot more bang for your buck for doing 2 to 3 sets all out as opposed to really pushing your limits and doing 6, 7, 8 sets per exercise. That's just pushing things a little bit too far. Obviously, the closer you are to just starting, you might need more volume than, what somebody that's been training for 10 years would. But again, very person dependent here. And then, of course, poor relationships with food and training, shaming yourself, guilting yourself, and obsessing over every little itty bitty thing. That's just going to take the joy out of all of this right away. We want to make sure that we have a healthy relationship with a body image, a healthy relationship with food, and those two things alone will project you forward so, so far. Of course, you will have those lows. You're only human. That's bound to happen, but we always take those into consideration and work our way through them. And then, you got your emotional swings, your highs, your lows. Again, that's just human nature, but I really don't want to have that be a tie down factor in any sort of way because obsessing over something like a scale creates a lot of stress. And with that stress, the body will stall. And I think one of you on this call has seen that lately, and we just talked about controlling stress levels and allowing the body to move on its own. And within the last week, with not making any sort of changes, individual X was able to lose a few pounds with not doing anything different but stress management. And stress management is key. Then, of course, again, for the PET users, we don't want to abuse the drugs. We want to use them as a tool and not as a crutch. Because again, it is your health at the end of the day. If you want to have babies down the road, if you want to ensure that your skin quality is good, your mental health is good, we have to be mindful of these things. Because drugs, any sort of drug, marijuana, coke, alcohol, food can be looked at as a drug. PEDs, of course, are drugs. They all have repercussions, and we have to be mindful of that. And we could definitely use them, but we just have to be, super cautious of how your body is responding to certain things and not going too far off the edge, if getting close to the edge at all, right? So, tying into the next slide, why all or nothing thinking oftentimes fails. Because missing one meal, I blew the diet, I need to just restart, but I'll start next week. The week is kind of done. Don't do that to yourself because that is only going to be more detrimental than anything when trying to get back on top of things. You missed one meal or you kind of overate on one meal, that next following meal, nail it. That in itself will spark a mental trigger to continue to progress and continue to work better within whatever situation you are struggling with. Same thing with skipping a workout. If you're going on vacation, you're going away for 2, 3 days. Oftentimes, if we have this conversation, I know we'll just take those days as a deload day, anyways, or deload days anyways, as opposed to trying to find a gym that's 40 minutes away or this or that. But again, that comes down to communication and making sure that we plan for things accordingly and just being mindful of it. But again, if you miss a workout, that's fine. There's 7 days in a week. Take one of your rest days that you just might have had and kind of rotate the week around to fit for that schedule now, right? Same thing. Focus on perfection and not progression. Obviously, we all want to be as perfect as we possibly can. I get it. But again, there will be situations where you just simply cannot be perfect, and you have to look at things in the micro setting, finding those small wins and ignoring all else and staying positive with your mindset throughout those situations is going to be key for you in regards to still progressing, right? And that in itself almost kind of goes into the next thing. And reinforcing negative self-talk, taking that right the fuck out. Because where your mind goes, your body will follow. I've said this a jillion times to probably every one of you that have been with me for more than 6 to 8 months. Your mind goes where the body follows. If you think you're not going to make progress, you're damn right you're not going to make progress. If you think you're going to make progress, you very much so will. And it sounds like the most silly concept, but the mind is a powerful tool, as well as the gut. You feed the mind and you feed the gut. How those two things kind of coincide with each other, I don't know the whole scientific relationship, but they fucking work. So we can continue to make sure that both aspects, both brains, your mind and your gut, are within a healthy position. You will see great things happen to you. Then, of course, reduction in adaptability. Life happens. You get sick, somebody dies, you have to go on a trip for work all of a sudden due to circumstances. It's totally okay. That's not the end of the world. Shoot me a message if you feel that you are overstressed or overwhelmed with whatever might be going on, and we work out a plan. There's, again, so many ways to get from point A to point B, and we just need to find out what way will work best for that given situation to allow you to still move forward, you know? And of course, creating cycles of quitting and restarting. Kind of that yo-yo, if that be with dieting, training, your steps, your cardio, etc. You don't want to sabotage your own momentum. Find your stride slowly if you're in this cycle. I don't think any of you guys are at the moment, but find your stride. Find something each day that you can be successful in and run with it. The next day, try and find a second thing that you can be successful in and fucking run even further with it. You do that over time, you find your own rhythm. And that rhythm is, again, what will allow you to kind of break that all or nothing thinking and have progression flow at a nice, steady state. Because true progress is just simply consistency and not perfection. When you can be consistent for, a month, if you're just starting out, a year, 2, 3, 4 years, 10 years, the compounding effect of that as a whole is astronomical, not just within this fitness thing that we're doing between you and I and the team, but within your career, within your relationships with your family and friends, your girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, husband, whoever it might be. Finding that consistent ground of enabling yourself to be in a positive setting is something that is probably one of the most powerful things that we all can utilize. And it's free. Mentally, you have to find that position to get yourself there. But once you do, good God, it is a unstoppable force. So just keep that all in mind, of course. But what balance really looks like, we got structure with flexibility. Everybody's plan here is different based on your job, your schedule with hobbies, your diets, training, etc. Everybody's schedule is flexible to their setting. Of course, in contest prep, things are a little bit more rigid. It just needs to be done to enable us to have consistency there, to be able to get you to stage ready. But for the most part, everybody here in the off season or as a lifestyle client will notice that a plan can always adapt. It can always adapt to any given situation, if that be with the food, if that be with the training, etc. And just making sure that we have that setting put in place for you to have that flexibility, to have that structure at the same time is key. And that comes down to, again, communication. I talk about this all the bloody time. If I don't know, I can't help you. So training hard plus recovering smart, that is where real progress is made. Intensity plus rest equals sustainable growth. We don't, again, want to be driving you into the ground and just obliterating you. It might sound fun in the moment for a short session, but having sessions like that all the bloody time is not the way forward. Even myself, I maybe train I don't even want to say to complete failure anymore because I was getting all these random niggles and injuries. I keep about one rep in reserve on absolutely everything. Even if I know mentally I could probably get one more, maybe even two. To me, it's just not worth it to try and push my limits physically within the gym to have an injury occur. It's just not in the cards for me. And I hope you guys have that same mindset as well, because having to stop at the ninth rep and that ninth rep being super clean as opposed to doing a 10th or 11th rep that looked like a dog shat it out in the backyard is not going to be beneficial. So again, just keep everything in the back of your mind that we chat about today. And I'll post this in the team chat as well. And we also got it recorded so you can watch it back. But with food, mostly nutritionally dense foods. Obviously, we have some flexibility in there, and we kind of go with that 80, 90 percent because I want to say the vast majority of you guys, even with contests and athlete prep clients, you guys do have some pretty snack type foods in there. If that be rice cakes, some guys got muffins. Who else? We got some people with Rice Krispie squares, cereal. So it's not just all plain Jane boring stuff. And I think that is a big key factor in being able to follow a diet is by having foods that you know, A, digest well. That's the most important thing. But B, you enjoy eating. If you got to sit down in front of a bowl that looks like dog food, that's not going to be fun. And I really want to push all of you guys, if you guys are struggling with this, experience different ways of cooking. If it be on YouTube, there's so many different things that you can try out. Get creative. Allow your creativity to just flow within the kitchen because that in itself is going to be an easy way for you to progress with honestly your own personal abilities to cook, but the enjoyment of eating your meals is staying on track with your food. And of course, we then go to setbacks as feedback. Again, any sort of setback is not any sort of negative impact to you. It is a lesson. It's a lesson to allow us to know that, next time something like this may occur, we know how to prepare for it because you've already gone through it. So it shouldn't be anything negative in regards to having an outlook of a bad manner. Look at it as an opportunity to learn and to do better for the next time that something may come about. And then you got consistency over intensity. Again, this comes down to simply just building good, healthy habits and relationships that you can continue to maintain in the long term. And I think anybody that also is a coach on here or is a PT would agree when I say this that my personal goal as a coach that when the time comes when you and I separate as a client, you want to go a different route or you're just done competing, everything that you learn with me, you can take on your own and continue. That has always been my goal as a coach. I don't want anybody to leave me as a coach and feel completely lost. If that's the case, I've failed miserably. I want you guys to learn along the way. If you guys ever feel like you have questions, but you think it might be a quote unquote stupid question, ask it anyways. I've asked so many stupid questions and I've always come out on top by learning, okay, I could do X, Y, and Z as opposed to A, B, and C, right? That is how you get better as an individual, but also as an athlete. Then we got practical tools to avoid within the extremes. So setting your minimum standard. Everybody already has this within their plan. So you got your daily steps, you got your protein, you got your water, you got your sleep. Also, we have added the sodium for the vast majority of you guys just to make sure that electrolyte balance is well on point. So just having those minimum standards. If you're struggling, you're having a hard day, you could look back and say, okay, am I at my step count? Not yet. Let me go move. Protein, have I ate my meals? I still am behind on one, but it's kind of getting late and I do not want to have two meals compressed into one. And I highly suggest not ever doing that. Just have a protein shake or simply just miss that meal. I'd much rather you do that as opposed to cramming two meals into one. But you also have your water and your sleep. So if you checked off four out of the five things, it's a pretty successful day in my eyes. Again, consistency over trying to reach perfection is what is going to allow you to make massive progress. And then aim for quote unquote good enough. Kind of ties into the above, hitting 80 to 90% of your days is much better than, hitting a bump in the road than saying F the whole rest of the day. Aim for good enough. That is the main priority. Prep clients, you got to nail it. It's a different situation. And then refrain from setbacks. Viewing your mistakes as temporary, not permanent. And again, they are just merely lessons to allow you to improve as a individual and as an athlete. Not anything that you do here is going to be a nasty setback. And even when you guys do come to me and say, Matt, I didn't do this and this kind of happened, I don't think I've ever been mad with any single one of you. That's not my point as a coach. I'm not here to, cuss you guys out or make you feel like crap. I think any coach that does that is not probably the best. But again, I want you guys to learn from any sort of mistakes that may come about. And of course, track progress beyond perfection. This kind of sums up the whole thing. Focus on performance, energy, and your daily habits of adherence to everything in regards to steps, food, training, cardio, water, sodium, meditation, if that's in your own thing as well. Try and just knock off good 90% of that, and you've got a pretty positive day. And of course, the last slide here, PEDs and extremes. Now, this doesn't obviously pertain to everybody, but chasing rapid results, people ramming into high dosages and not listening to myself and what I may have to say in regards to gear, um, it's not worth it. Just trust me. The less is a little bit better than trying to push and make astronomical progress in a short period of time because that's only going to result into some negative side effects. Then, of course, the health risks that come with that hormonal disruption, organ strain, long-term side effects, if that be something like gynecomastia, horrible acne, erectile dysfunction, can't have babies, men or female for that sake. These are very serious things. It might seem like, oh, it's just a couple pimples, but those couple pimples can evolve to a nasty outbreak, cystic acne, and then you gotta go on Accutane. You might even need surgery because you got craters in your back. Like, you really have to be mindful. Do your own research. Don't just take what I say and run with it in regards to drugs. I want you guys to understand what these drugs and hormones do to you. If that be your generic PEDs or now peptides have definitely come onto the market as well. So educate yourself, guys. It has to be done. Psychological extremes, you get body image issues, dependency. Oh, I need more of this to look like this. No, not today, Satan. You do not need more. The less is more here. We don't want to become that individual that is dependent in regards to almost being an addict. You know, you need to get your fix. You need to go snort a line of coke. It's the same thing as pinning more gear that you really do not need. Be patient, be mindful. Progress takes time, and I much rather us take an extra year to get to somewhere as opposed to pushing it into 4 or 5 months and have you look like a troll from under a bridge. It is not what I want for a guy and especially for a female. So always a balanced approach, making sure that we do blood work, if we need to do EKGs, if we need to do a Holter monitor, if we need you to go do a stress test, if you need to go and do a sleep apnea test, any sort of issues can be definitely avoided with us being mindful by doing, your education, communication, and making sure that we stay on top of any sort of testing that may need to be done. And you guys all have access to Dr. Dawood, however you pronounce his name, and he is phenomenal. So if you guys ever need to reach out and set an appointment with him, please do so. I fully encourage it. I gotta have a wrap up, takeaways. Extremes, short-term wins, long-term losses. It's again not worth it in the long term to kind of push to these maximums. Obviously, bodybuilding as a competitor, there's some extremes. I get it, but we don't want to be pushing it to the absolute brink where it's just too much for you. Of course, that all or nothing thinking creates inconsistency and burnout. Balance plus structure equals flexibility. Small, consistent actions, they do compound. I promise you, they do. And it will be well worth it as opposed to rushing. And of course, the very end of it all, success is about stacking good days. Doesn't have to be perfect days. Sure doesn't, but they have to be good. We do that, and you make phenomenal progress in the long term. So that is it. I think that summarizes everything. Yeah, no worries, brother. Head on out. That's totally cool. But is there any questions from anybody that I could possibly answer for you guys? Just jump on the chat or just unmute your mic and fire away. Everybody's good? Yay, nay? Let me know.
Hey, Matt,
Yes, brother, what's going on?
I just wanted to ask you,
Mhm.
if we are calculating, you said, right, less is more, but how we can calculate the PED dosage for a client? Is it going with the weight, height, or how we calculate the PED dosages?
So always start small, okay? Start
Okay.
with the absolute basics. If they're new to using gear,
Yeah.
use just test. See how they respond to it with
Mm.
that maybe 200 mgs per week, 250 mgs per week,
Yeah.
because Sananthe would be 250 mgs per cc. So it's
Yeah.
easy for them to calculate that as well. Check and see their response over 4, 5, 6 weeks. If they're responding well, great. Leave it at that. If they're having negative side effects, get blood work done. They shouldn't have any negative side effects at that. But I would have them at least check their blood work within the first 12 weeks, and those results will show you if there is any sort of issue, right?
Yeah.
And if there's any specifics that you're just lost with, shoot me a message. But
Okay.
you really want to make sure that you just take your time with them. There's no set, foreground from where you should start, but
Okay.
allowing you the ability to start at a lower dose and working your way up is going to be the smartest move that you could possibly do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries, brother. How do we know where this line is between enough and more in terms of food and cardio? So it kind of ties into what I just said. Just knowing how a person responds in regards to recovery, if they're holding weight and they're not dropping weight, if stress levels are super high, if they're holding a lot of water retention, you got to look for all the negative things that come about from us pushing the body. Kind of like what we did with you. We saw things stall, so we implemented some refeed days. You lost weight. Fantastic. The body just needed some more fuel on the fire to work with. Got to think about your metabolism as a campfire. The logs being the wood. The more wood that you throw onto that fire, it'll be hot. It'll burn good throughout the whole night. Once that fire kind of starts to dwindle down and you just get ashes, you need to put more wood on the fire, aka a refeed. So it comes down to just being able to interpret the results from a client and how well they are responding to the amount of stimulus you're putting at them, if that be food, cardio, steps, etc. Let's say if I've gained after refeed days, it's not doing us, does it mean it's not us doing enough? You want your body weight to come up after a refeed day. That glycogen is what you're searching for. If you lose body weight after a refeed day, you need more food. Simple as that. Because you want body weight to either hold or slightly go up by zero point 0.5 of a pound to a pound and a half, depending on the size of the individual. So it is definitely a positive when you see body weight come up. Any more questions? We got a minute and 30 seconds left. We might be able to bang out one more. If not, we'll end it here. Okay. Cool beans, people. Well, I hope that you guys all have a good rest of your day. I will be responding to your check-in responses anytime, guys. I'm happy to do these calls. Um,
Thank you.
Anytime. You guys have a good rest of your day, and I will chat with you guys all shortly, okay?
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Anytime.
you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.